All right, let's start. So I think pretty much everyone's been here before. Is that correct? Is there anybody who hasn't or hasn't studied, that this is like totally new to them? I know you haven't studied with me, but you've studied, All right. So that, would it be, okay. So I'll tailor the class in any way you want it. Okay? So it's going to be whatever you guys want, because we don't necessarily have to go through ABC. But if you want to go through ABC, we will go through ABC. And of course, my ABC is always a little bit different. So I'm just giving you total free rein to, we have some patients at specific times, but otherwise we're really totally open to doing whatever. The class is about you, as opposed to about, doing something specific, okay? Is that fair? Okay, so maybe we should start with if you have specific topics or questions or anything that you want covered.
We covered the back in like a little bit more detail on like the relationship, the sort of points of diagnosis and treatment along the spine, and
okay.
how we use those things.
Okay.
Digestion.
Okay.
We spoke last time about giving lift.
Okay.
But it was all right here, but when you got back
to the clinic, it wasn't quite, wasn't lifting.
I think I sunk loads of people.
Sorry?
I think I sunk loads.
You sunk loads of people?
Rather than lifted them.
Well, okay. So, can you say a little bit more about that? I mean, like what?
No, you were just talking about giving lift, and you're using certain points and certain angles and things, and it just blurred.
Well, we're going to go through that again in a sense. I mean, part of the problem with the lift thing is that I think what I'm trying to convey to people is that we're often very concentrated on the 5 elements or the 5 on the Zang Fu, and there's something that comes before the Zang Fu. So a lot of patients, if you just say, oh, this is a spleen, or this is a this, or this is a this, you're not going to get not as much moves with that. But if you create the space in the body, then things start to move a lot more. So that was really my purpose is really to give reverence to creating that space, and to start taking us a little bit out of our normal sense of, well, it's got to be spleen, or it's got to be, that we want to classify something into these 5 categories, because the 5 elements are 5 elements of yin-yang, the 5 phases or 5 movements of yin-yang. It's yin-yang wu-xing, okay, yin-yang 5 movements, okay, and they don't exist independently. So how do you get back to just yin-yang in a more practical manner, let's say? And so that means the mediation between earth and sky is the space that the person occupies. So how do you, and most of us don't occupy that space. We just kind of like, we're just sinking down there. And in order to have a lift, there has to be both a down and an up. And since we're not physical therapists, how do we give that sense, that space, to a client with needles? So one of the big things to look at is Mushu. Okay, so the question I would have for you is, do you find that it's a useful point? Okay, so if that's the case, then why do you always do you also say that you think you're sinking people? In other words, if that's in other words, they're not going to come this height and leave this height. If you're expecting that, it's a high expectation. But if you're giving them the sense of length and lift, and they're coming with a problem, and the problem gets better, then the lift has happened, even though they may look still you know, like this. Does that make sense? So I think that the lift has still happened, even though there's no, they're not going to look any taller. Does that answer it all? Or, you know, so I think kind of like probably the main theme last time was probably, you know, mushu. You know, and what I was trying to show you, I mean, the reason I'm answering this one right away, by the way, it's not because I'm ignoring you, is because it relates to the so-called next topic. What I was showing you originally was that by the activation of kidney 6, when you separate the heel from the ankle bone, which means you're activating kidney 6, and then you're creating that sense of the inner thigh lifting that you can take up through the front of the spine. Okay, does everybody remember it, or shall we do this again physically? I'm happy.
Do it again, please.
You can do it again. Okay, so stand up. And what you want to do is, so just the terminology is clear. This is the heel, and this is the ankle bone. So we're pressing the heel down and lifting the ankle bone away from it. So the natural tendency for most of us, if we're going to lift the ankle bone, is we're going to do that. We want to lift the ankle bone. We're going to roll onto the outside of the foot. What we want, and if we push the heel down, we're going to basically do this. That's just the natural tendency. So what you want to do is keep spleen 3 on the floor, keep that whole arch between spleen 3 and UB65 on the floor, spread the toes, and now push the heel down with both feet, and lift the ankle, pull the ankle bone away from it. So the result should be, if you do that, will be Messiah Tadasana, will be a sense of a lift in the inner thighs, which you can take into the perineum, and feel the whole spine rising as a result of your little toes are lifted off the floor. Yeah, don't, because that's overdoing kind of thing. So by pushing down the heel and lifting the ankle bone, you can feel it percolating up. And if you're relatively good at this and your spine's relatively free, you should be able to possibly feel it all the way the front of the spine, meaning in back of the organs but in front of the spine. So that's not your do channel, okay? And all the way possibly to here. Okay, I don't know anybody who can go past their throat. It might be possible, but I haven't seen it. But I want you to see how that comes from the feet. So if you're feeling your inner thighs, or a certain something in the lower abdomen, that's what you want to feel. Your feet might be a little wide. It might be hard. Yeah, try it again. So don't lift. Send the heel down and lift the ankle bone away from it. Do you feel this? You're definitely, you're definitely activating this, yeah. So don't tense it, just do the foot and see if the thigh works on its own without the thigh doing anything. But this idea that from the heel you can elongate things is really what I'm after, okay? So good friends of, part of this mushu would be you could activate, you could do things like kidney 6, inner yin, because those are the things that we feel when we're activating. So these are kind of good friends. The other 3 good friends possibilities are, as you're lifting, your kind of stomach 9 is one option. What I call tooth fairy, which is under the teeth here. A lot of people have tension here because if they don't have that that sense of elasticity in the lower abdomen, they're going to try and hold themselves up here. Okay, or from the shoulder. So they're going to be like this. So if you kind of release this, they have to grab something else. So they will find something between their legs. And the other one is UB2, which I'm associating more as upper dantian. Okay, so we're looking at coordinating the lower dantian with the upper dantian. Does that make sense? So that's kind of like a summary of the so-called lift. Yes, Anna.
How would you choose the points to...
Under here? Yeah. Okay, so you go to Ren 23, drop it under the chin, okay, under the bone. Okay, so it's not, so some of you who've, if you've seen Kiiko whenever she was here sometime around the summer, You know, and she's obsessed with Kawai's chin point. This is originally, okay, so this is my view, okay, this is not, I'm not forcing that view on anyone, but so now Kiiko is into like, this treats everything, right? So, you know, originally this was Kawai's point for facial paralysis. It's supposed to balance both sides of the face. That's the original, and we haven't seen anybody use it, including Kiiko, you know, until about a year ago. Suddenly this became God. Okay, you know, it's like this replaced Do 16 kind of thing, right? So, you know, no, every year there's a new, this is the most fabulous thing ever, you know, everybody's like that. So if this balances the two sides of the face, there's a good chance it balances two sides of the brain, right? And that's, I think, where the idea of the power of this point, of this, the chin point comes from. What I'm talking about is not here, but keep going down towards REN 24, but stop once you get past the bone. Now go sideways and find out where there's tension under the gums.
Okay.
So when they're lying down, the needles go this way. Okay, nothing's going this way, it's that way.
And you needle directly into the tension.
Yes, yeah. With the idea that you're basically sending a message to the body, let go here, meaning find something lower. That's why it's a good friend of Mushu. Okay, the idea behind Mushu is that Mushu gives you a sense of a lift in the perineal floor. Okay? So, related to that, let's see, we'll try it this way. So, if you sit, and I would put both feet on the floor, my chair is just very low, so I can't do it. So what I want you to do is, as you're sitting, now this is going to be way more subtle than the other stuff. I want you to take your hip, your iliac crest, the posterior, superior, whatever it is, the back of the iliac crest, and see if you can take it to the side, just in thought. Don't try and push it with muscles. Take the hip bones and send them to the side so the sacrum can just drop down. You look at me very strangely. Okay. Then don't concentrate here. Send everything down here. Whatever will happen, will happen. The two hip bones are moving to the side. The tailbone is now supposedly, if you could really take your hip bones totally to the side, separate them, the tailbone's basically now floating in the middle of nowhere. So that's what you're imagining. Okay? And as you've done that, see if you can hollow out the front as a thought pattern, okay, just about where the pubic bone is. Okay, so you're widening the lower back, the sacrum, and see what happens in the area of stomach 30. Any comments?
I need a wee.
Sorry?
I need a wee.
Okay, I guess you activated stomach 30. So, does everybody, can you feel a hollowness in the very lower abdomen is really my question, by taking the iliac bones away?
So it's warming up?
Warming up would be some sense of description. I mean, everybody's going to have it differently. I'm getting blank looks.
No, it's just interesting. I mean, I suppose I can just feel a lot more in that area, so there's more awareness there.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to work out whether that's because I'm just putting my awareness there, or whether it's because something else is happening. So
okay, so take your awareness away from the abdomen and take it purely into the widening of the, I mean, basically all I wanted you to do is get an awareness of stomach 30. So just take your awareness away from there for a moment so you're clear, and just take the iliac bones and spread them apart and let the sacrum, quote unquote, float there. And I think you'll automatically still get a sense of stomach 30. Is that correct for everyone, or is that totally like, what the hell am I supposed to do here?
No, I understand what you're saying.
Sorry?
Yeah, it feels a bit buzzy in there. It feels.
Okay, good. Okay, it's no, Lawrence.
No, not really, no.
So,
I get distracted by my fat dropping to the.
you're just obsessed with lifting. So, okay, all right. Keep your feet on the floor. Hold on, I won't be able to show you without a chair. So since we're choosing to do it with, I mean, we don't have a choice. We have to do it with a chair. What I want you to do is do the same thing. So I wanted you to not start with the feet, just to get. So take your hip bones apart. So Lawrence, this should hopefully will help you. Now what I want you to do is I want you to send. Oh, first one thing I forgot to ask you. Make sure you're sitting on your thighs and not on your butt. Okay, so because otherwise, if you're sitting on your butt, it's going to be very hard to do all of this because you kind of, I'm exaggerating because you're leaning back. So you kind of have to be on your sit bones, which was what I call you sitting on your thigh. Your chair should be touching your thighs and not most of your buttocks. You looking confused?
How much of your thighs? You seem to be on the end of
This
the
is,
chair, whereas
well,
I've got the chair.
okay, so I'm not at the end of the chair,
Yeah.
okay, but this is sitting on my butt, okay, and this is sitting on my thighs. Now that my thigh, it's not so important how far forward you are in the chair right now, because if you were to get up and you're sitting that far back, it's going to be very difficult. But so being forward makes it more easy because I'm moving all the time. But I'm thinking it's my thigh that's here, that's touching the chair rather than my buttocks. Okay, so do this business again of sending the hip bones away. Okay, I would put the feet on the floor.
Then I got my own, just because the seat's too low.
It's why do you want mine? Activate the kidney sticks on the chair and everything will be fine. So yeah, you're a little tall. Yeah, it will be harder for you to do the next thing though. But see what happens. So what? Having taken width and feeling something in the lower abdomen, and Lawrence, you haven't gotten it yet, but I'm hoping you will in a second. I want you to now send the thigh, the inner thigh, that's your liver channel, send it down to the chair. Push, not with muscles, with thought. Push your inner thigh to the chair, down to the chair. Do you feel more now? Yes, there's a lift. Okay, we got to the lift. Lawrence, does that activate it for you or not quite yet? Okay, hold on, I'll get there.
Like a tightening, but I don't know if it's a lift so much.
Everybody's going to say something else. I mean, what one's tightening could be someone else's lifting, could be someone else's warming. I mean, it's not like there's a specific, it's not a hazard. The question is whether there's an activation. Okay?
It's got more awareness, actually. So this is clarity and awareness.
Yeah. What you basically did is you, by sending the inner thigh down, you basically activated the psoas. Because the psoas attaches to the top of the thigh, okay? So now let go of that and let the legs go like this. And do you feel how all of this kind of went away by dropping the thighs out, right? So there's a certain kind of activation. Now, the other thing is what you can do is you can think of, as you lengthen the hip bones away, see if you can send the knee away from you as you send liver 12 down. And what does that do? The knee goes away, liver 12 goes down, hip bones go sideways. It's all in your imagination. Any more activation? That tends to push you back. I send liver 12 down more. I think you're trying to push the knee too far out. Is that helping?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So all I'm trying to do is give you the idea that there's connections in a body and that we can then impose acupuncture points on them. Now, the last thing I want you to do is I want you to now drop, actually, let's sit up. And I'll get to your, and let's do the whole thing standing up. And you may want to bend your knees slightly, it may be easier for you. So, because it's a little easier. I wouldn't go into a full horse stance, but because it's easier to take the hip bones away when the knees are a little bit bent. Okay, so send the hip bones away. Send the knees away, whether they're straight or whether they're slightly bent. And now what I want you to do is drop liver 4 down, and you'll see everything will dropping liver 4 down is basically dropping the ankle this way. Okay? And what you'll probably see is the whole thing disappears. Lift liver 4 up, and you can reestablish it. Fair?
Yeah.
So there's a connection between liver 4 and stomach 30. Lawrence, yes or no? No, don't be.
I'm not very good at perception of that sort of.
Okay, afterwards we'll go through that again. Okay, so all I wanted to do is show you that there is a connection between liver 4 and stomach 30, and as it happens, the ancients agree with me. So, or I agree with them. No, why I'm doing it is because I want to show you that there is that there's, you know, if we just read the classics, which most of us don't do, right? But assuming that we do, we're good people, we're serious acupuncturists, we go to the classics, then that we're just going to parrot it. You know, so the thing is, the classics were built, you know, the Ling Shu, the Su Wen, where Nanjing is possibly written by one person, but the Su Wen and the Ling Shu are very clearly written by different people. You know, if you do.
All written by Chibo.
Chibo is saying it. He didn't write it. He was an orator. No, they were written by the Ella Emperor, actually, according to. But you know, there's the meridian system didn't arrive to us from like somebody invented the meridian system and suddenly we have a complete meridian system. The meridian system is given to us by many contributors. Some of them are we are one application of the meridian system. We think that it belongs to us, but it actually doesn't. The meridian system is possibly actually started more by the martial artists. We don't know, but it wouldn't be surprising, And then when we're looking at names of points, there's many traditions, many things that contribute into namings of things. So some of it will make sense to us as acupuncturists and some of it will not. So you can't take all the points and say, I can really see the map. And I'm not aware of any one person who can say they can do it. Okay, there's always going to be point names that kind of like, what the hell? Like, I don't know why they named it this. It's like, but a lot of it, you're going to have to make up your own story about it. What does this meridian mean to you? Okay, and that's part of what I'm trying to enforce. The idea is that we need to keep finding out. Like how do we manipulate this thing? So, stomach 30 is called Qi Chang. Okay, so black will do. Okay, so Chang is water. Okay, this is Chang. Okay, but there's two. I know it's hard for you. It's if you're not, if you don't look at Chinese on a regular basis. There's actually two Changs in their equivalent. This is to rinse. And even though everybody uses this, there are points that have Chang that have this character, and some people will write Chang the channel like this. But there is another Chang, and it's on page 1, 2, 3, 4, probably the 5th page, yeah, where it says stomach 30 by name. Okay, there is another Chang. This, if it's together, this character means like 5 phases, Xing or Han. This is to walk. Okay, so it has the character to walk, and in between, it has this. Okay, this character, this is Gui in the middle. This is Xing to walk. This is the way they analyze this character, they say it's 2 earths. Okay, 2 earths, 1. This is somebody conferring authority in feudal times. You giving somebody the authority to work this piece of land. Okay? So, liver 4, on the other hand, if you flip the page, you'll see the character for liver 4, which is called Zhengfang, is center, and this character here with a hand. Okay, this is the hand. It's translated. Feng is translated as a seal. Okay, seal of approval, meaning the hand confirms this authority. This character here is the same character as Chang. Okay. Now, in this handout, you'll see that there, I sort of analyzed it a little bit further, that some people say that no, they're actually not the same character, but they all mean the same thing. Some people say that this one here, some dictionaries say that this is earth, and actually this character below that's being transmuted to this. Therefore, this character and this and this are not the same necessarily, depending on dictionary. But that's like, it doesn't matter, because at the end they're going to mean the exact same thing. It's to confer authority, okay? Now, in link shoot number 2, there is a phrase. Okay, so you've all probably learned, if you look, and I know, and I checked with Dedman, and I know he says the same thing. The traditional location of when they talk about liver 4, they say take stomach, but they're not saying it that way. They're saying it's on the lateral side of the tendon at the ankle, which means take stomach 41 and go lateral to the tendon. That is not liver 4, and the link shoe on the location says specifically, it talks about liver 4 enters 1 sun short of the ankle bone. Okay, so that means take 1 sun and go below. And if you touch yourself or touch someone else's liver 4, if you go to the ankle, to the crease, you will find very little that's useful there. But if you go below, you will find almost like a little hill there. There's a little like nodule, a gummy sort of thing. That's liver 4. And when I asked you to drop liver 4 to see, to activate stomach 30, it's not. It's this area where the drop happens, and it's this area where the lift happens. So in my opinion, this is my opinion, as it happens, the link shoe happens to say the same thing, so I can say it's the right opinion, right? The classics say. But this is the thing that's going to create the lift. The next phrase, now this is part of, the link shoot number 2 talks about all the 5 element points. This is the yin spring point, this is the blah blah point, this is the Jing river point, da da da. It just says which is which for each channel. When it comes to liver 4, it has this phrase. Liver 4, 1 sun short from entering the ankle. And then it says, let me see if I get it exactly correct, because I translate it, my interpretation of it. Needle it with a flow, you create harmony in the abdomen. And actually, they're saying it differently. And needle it against the flow, and you create obstruction. Okay? The actual phrase you'll see here, where is it? Here. The literal translation is make opposite or against on liver 4, then you get crookedness or obstruction. Things are bent. Okay? Make harmony, meaning go with the flow. Okay? And you create tongue, openness. Okay? So you create a flow. Okay? He doesn't say that about any other point, and he doesn't care about any other point. It just enumerates the points. So suddenly you start to understand that liver 4 must have a great interest for whoever wrote this chapter. We generally, when you went to school, liver 4 was a non-point. Was a point to know for point location, but nobody ever used it, right? And in Japanese acupuncture, people use liver 4, but generally there's a huge ignoring of liver 4, and that seems like classically that was probably not the case. That they probably did use liver, that they had some reverence to liver 4. The other point that has this character Feng, the seal, is kidney 23, and the name of that point is Shen Feng, okay, the seal for the spirit. Okay, so I'm not sure, again, you know, I mean, you could say it's right outside REN 17, you can come up with all sorts of things, but I'm not sure what the connection there is. But with stomach 30, there's a connection through characters, but, you know, it's easy to do this connection with character because it's like, you know, going in roundabout ways to make connections. What interests me is that I can see the connection in the body. Okay, liver 4 will activate stomach 30. Okay, so now let's go through why is stomach 30 so important? Yes?
Yeah, just ask, when you're talking about all this lift and this area, would that be useful for fallen arches then?
Will that be useful for?
Fallen arches, you know, when...
Possibly. You probably need to activate the thigh in some manner in order to help the arch. Because if the arch is falling and you're just trying to do it from the foot, it's going to get very, you know, if they could do it from the foot, they would have done it already. So I'm going to suggest that you need to do it from the hip, from the thigh, to create a lift here to help so that they feel there's less work in the foot.
So you're looking at the inner yin?
Inner yin is a possibility, or what Kawai does for knees, I call this treatment Quadriceps Facelift. I do spleen 10 and stomach 34. Kawai said do 3 fingers above, and you actually like the liver channel and the gallbladder channel. But I tend to like spleen 10 and stomach 34. And you're needling them upwards, so you're creating a whole, you know, because a lot of people with knee pain, what happens, the quad is weak and it's falling into the knee. So in order to get the weight out of the knee, you pull these. So that would be something I would consider for fallen arches as part of it.
Is it one of those things where it can be very complex when you look at it more? Because it could be.
The more you look at it, the worse. The more.
It's the back. It could be dropping in the chest.
Yeah, it would be.
Like you can't. These guidelines in terms of.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, they're just kind of like some ideas that you can use, you know, for fallen arches. But, you know, it's very rare that somebody comes to an acupuncturist, if it's ever happened, and say, "Can you fix my fallen arches?" They usually come and say, "I have a problem," and you're going, "I think your problem is related to the fact that your arches are falling, therefore you don't have a lift, blah, blah, blah." So again, I would give them the lift from elsewhere so that they might be able to activate the arches. Does that make sense, Jay?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
You're looking at this part, when you say thigh, it's quite a big...
So you can go anywhere. It can be here, it can be... You're going to have to find out in their thigh, what area in their thigh is lacking and dropping down into the foot. And if you lifted the thigh, that's why I said, you know, for example, you know, when I tell you I like spleen 10, stomach 34, and Kawai likes higher end, more on the sides, these are just, you know, these are differences that we all find different things, but on each patient you will find something else. But the question for you is going to see is there something in the thigh that can activate and give them more awareness in the foot? You know, is stomach chi going to do it? For example, there's many options for you. So one of the things about stomach 30 is, so you know, you learn, you know, the Chang originally, we say the Chang starts somewhere behind REN 3 and goes up. It goes to stomach 30 and then manifests up, but there's also, the part of the Chang goes down the leg. And there's this description for 3 different channels, and that unfortunately I'd have to literally quote you because there's no way we don't use the Chang that way. So, but one of them goes into the through the inner leg, you know, and it's described as part of the kidney channel, except it's going counterflow to the kidney channel, obviously. So it's going down this way. One of them is going down the shin, because remember that the Sea of Chang, the points for the Sea of Chang are stomach 37, 39, the lower head points of the small intestine and large intestine. Okay, so one of them goes down the shin and into stomach 42, and one branch goes to the big toe. Okay, don't forget, liver 3 has the character Chang. Oh, we never finished the Chang. Oh yeah, we did finish the Chang character. Okay, liver 3 is called Tai Chang, the great surge. So even though the first Chang, if you're looking etymologically, the first Chang, this one, is to rinse, and this one is to surge. Okay? They're literally interchangeable. So if somebody writes this, you don't know if they mean this or this. It's one of those weird phenomenons. Well, you know, it's a little bit like, you know, what you write things with AE, right? Like diarrhea, right? Americans, we only do the A. It's interchangeable. It's as if it's the same thing. So if I write diarrhea just with an A, you totally understand it, and you don't think that there's anything weird. You know, it may not be the way you write it. You know, and if I see the English way, it's like, yeah, it's like, it's just the way, you know. So it's the same thing here. It's two characters that are basically, they're pronounced the same, and even though originally they meant something different, they're totally interchangeable. Okay? And I just gave you the wrong chong there. Of course I did that. I gave you jie instead. I'm sorry. This chong's different. Yes, yes, yes. This I gave you the thing that's in jie. It's an academic issue for the most part because nobody really speaks Chinese here, right? Is that correct? Okay, so I can say anything I want. This character is actually, the other name for stomach 30 is qi jie, and jie is translated as a street or a thoroughfare. I'm sorry, that was my mistake. The other chong is also, it has the character for walking, and in the middle it has something else. Sorry, that's the, you know, okay, it has like a cart. This is the character that has in the middle, okay, which means something serious. Okay, that's why it's movement that is serious. That's why you're surging, you're seriously moving. Okay? So it's that one. This is chong, and this is jie. Sorry, this means street. Walking with authority is a street. Okay? This is walking with seriousness. This is to surge. Okay,
so
and it's
not the rinse, is that what you're saying?
The rinse and this one are the same. Both of these are chong. This one is jie. But stomach 30 is also called qi jie. In fact, it's more common to call stomach 30 qi jie. Okay, if you look in the Ling Shu, I just did the search a few weeks ago. It appears 9 times as qi jie, and it appears only 4 times as qi chong, stomach 30. Okay, so it actually, and it only appears as qi chong in locations, never in anything, you know, when they're talking about it in terms of application or theory or anything else, it's always as qi jie, never as qi chong. Okay, they're just, it's one of those situations where a point has 2 names that are totally kind of synonymous. It's the jie and the feng in liver 4 that relates. Okay, but all I wanted to show you was that the names, because you know none of you are writing academic papers about Chinese characters of point names. That liver 4 by character, they both have conferring authority in the character. Okay, and the authority that liver 4 confers is on the center. And that what the Ling Shu says is that if you needle it with the flow, you're conferring harmony or into the center, and if you're needling against the flow, you're creating obstruction. Okay, that's the, you know, the idea there. Okay, move. It's kind of not all that important, to be honest. So let's look at stomach 30. It's much more useful. So many people, you know, because, you know, you hear about this idea of like, you know, there has to be a core, okay? And what is the core, okay? And then people say, oh, the core is in the abdomen. And what they're sort of talking about a whole abdomen like this, okay? And they think that's the core. So if you think of the rectus abdominis as the core, and you can, it's okay, it kind of doesn't make sense. For one thing, physically it's in the wrong place. Okay, it's too far in the front. The core should be further in. Okay, and also it's a little bit on the big side. The rectus abdominis goes from, I believe, from the ribs to the hips. Okay, if my core is this long, it seems to me it takes about 1/5 of my size. You know, that looks to me like about 20%. of my total size. That as a core seems a little bit big for me. So number one, it's too far forward. Number two, it's too big. Number three, no matter what you do with your abdomens, it's going to be hard to say that the rectus abdominis controls the whole body, which is what you want to be able to say about the core. Okay, that's just my sense of it. Okay, so I have to think of what is going to be more appropriate for the core. How, you know, I mean, the reason why I want the core is because the idea is if I can manipulate something in the core, I can have huge ramifications for everything else, right? You know, it's just like nuclear, you know, fusion or you know, splitting or whatever. If you're doing something at the nucleus, at the core, a big thing happens everywhere else. So that's why everybody's obsessed with, like, how do we affect the core? Okay. Now, you at the same time also to understand that the meridian system is a system that's integrative. In other words, yes, I can choose to concentrate on the core, but I should be able to affect the core from the extremities. You know, because the meridian system very clearly shows us that everything connects, that there's no separation. And in fact, in the chapter that, you know, in Japanese acupuncture, there's two things that are very typical of Japanese acupuncture, okay? They all talk about we treat the core or the constitution. We do not treat symptomatically. They get very offended if you say, I treat something, you know, that they treat it the symptom. They get upset by that. And the other thing is you watch a lot of Japanese practitioners and they're very proud of, you know, you must do Okyu, you must do Moxa. You know, which a lot of people say, but it's so much work. I don't want to do all this moxa. You know, it's very typical. You know, and I'm going to suggest that both things are kind of like they're just myths, and that you can get away with just needles and still get good results. It's okay. You know, it's like moxa adds, but you could get away with just needles if you're one of those people who hates doing, you know, the tiny little work of moxa. It's okay. You can still be a good acupuncturist, you know. No, because there are people who feel like, oh my God, you know, it's like only if I do, and if I, you know, every patient, if I don't do 10 of those, then I didn't do my job. It's like, you did your job if the patient got better. You know, that's really what matters. But this thing about the symptom and the, you know, so there's a lot of talk about branch, what is it called? Branch and root theory. When you read what the Ling Shu says about branch and root, they're not saying one is superior. They're just saying, and in fact, the root is what you would think the branch. The root is at the Jingwell point, is on the foot, and the branch is here. Okay, they're just saying this is the beginning and this is the end. You know, they're just saying there's a correlation between the two. It's just like with a tree. A tree has roots. The tree absolutely needs the root. Okay? If you change the environment for the root, the rest of the tree, you know, the branches are going to eventually be affected, withered, whatever. But it's also true that, you know, yes, the tree shed its leaves. But if you cut too many branches, the tree will die also. The leaves that fall off the branches feed the roots. You can't separate the two. So, you know, people sort of started this whole intellectual discussion about, I only treat the root. Well, there's something wrong. You should treat the branches. You know, it's like we like to think that we should only treat the root because it seems superior. But we should treat both. Okay, that's just my idea. Anyway, so coming back to core, for me, I think the psoas makes a lot more sense as a core. Okay, because number one, it's deeper. Okay, you have a much smaller area. The psoas will start, say, around L2 or something, and it ends at.
Is it just one straight muscle from L2?
Well, it's officially two muscles because you have the psoas and you have the iliopsoas. So you have one that comes from the lumbars,
yeah.
and actually I believe it's 3 or 4 lumbars. I'm not. I should have checked my anatomy a little better before I decided to talk about it. But I believe it's a bunch of the front of the lumbars and down into the lesser tuberosity of the lesser trochanter of the thigh. So around liver 12 area. Okay, and the other one is wider. It comes from the front of the iliac crest the back part of the iliac, the back hip bone, but the front of it, not from the back of it, but the front of it, and then it joins. So the two muscles they have the same insertion. Okay, so the psoas to me is much more core for a number of reasons. First of all, it's deeper. It's a smaller area, but most importantly, when you're looking at something you think is going to be core, there's a few qualities it has to have. Okay, one quality it has to have is it has to be both solid and hollow at the same time. There has to be an elasticity to it. Something that's just kind of like one solid mass is not going to be a core. Okay, because it's just sitting there. So between the psoas, basically, you have the hollowness of the lower abdomen. That's why I want you to feel what is it like to have a hollowness in the lower abdomen. The other thing is a core should be activating the whole body. Okay, so the psoas, now this is, you kind of, it's hard to see it with us because we're standing with straight legs. Because we're standing with straight legs, we're walking pretty much with straight legs, we're bending a little bit. But if you're like this, or you're like this, so with a lion or a tiger, you're going to see them moving from here, right? When a tiger leaps, okay, what are they doing? They're normally like this, right? And then what they're doing is they're pushing this way. Okay, so there's a huge action that happens here. We generally don't activate this very much. So you can see that the core of the movement, in an animal is here, is in the area of stomach 30. Fair? Okay. The other thing is, I don't know if you don't want to give you nightmares, but if you watch one of those, nature kind of things, and you see the lion's about to pounce on the antelope, and and then you go, oh, turn the television off, or you might go, oh, let's hear the, depending on your personality. But what you'll see is that the animal that's about to, so there's a chase, and at some point, what will happen? The animal that's about to, the deer, let's say, or if you have a cat, it will be the mouse. What they'll do, that I'm familiar with, so I've seen it a little too often. At some point when, you know how mice play dead? When the cat's like got them, and and the cat has them in the mouth, and then they drop, and the mouse is, unless they're sure they can get away, they're just going like, I don't exist, kind of thing. But but when you look at it at the moment of catching, what happens is the animal goes like this. They drop everything into the psoas. Everything contracts there, and they basically freeze. Now, it's theoretical because I'm not a mouse, and Not only am I not a mouse, I've never had a dinosaur about to swallow me. So we're all thinking that this is what's happening, is that somehow this shuts down the nervous system. I mean, think about it. Someone's going to like eat you up. You kind of basically want to not just play dead, you want to be dead at that point. You don't want to be alive and, feel that. So basically the organism sort of shuts itself down with the understanding that in all likelihood you're about to be killed, okay. And if not, then then you'll run away. But if that's what's going to happen, then you need to shut down the sensing of it. So again, we see a core. I mean, if you look like a nuclear core, like Fukushima or something. If the core shuts down, everything shuts down. Okay, so again, if we see in animals, we see very clearly when this shuts down, it shuts down the nervous system. So that's why I think this is much more for core. Now, I started this whole sort of exploration, actually, because of that. Okay, what I looked at was, there's I think his name is Peter Levine or something, but there's a whole theory of post-traumatic stress disorder, which is a big subject nowadays, well, at least in America, because of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. So you have all these people coming back, you know, with, yeah. So there's a whole method of treating people, because, you know, psychotherapy, you know, okay, you're talking about people, you know, I mean, it was the same after World War I, and I'm sure after World War II too, but, you know, that's like the big thing that they talk about. These people come back from war and, well, you know, they're men. They don't talk to psychotherapists, right? I mean, there's, you know, of course nowadays some do, but it's not so easy, you know, to go through that process. So people started looking at how do we work with it, with the body, you know, give them, and one of the things that we're looking at is, you know, they have these exercises for shaking the leg, you know, for activating the psoas in order to release trauma, okay? So this is an area that's gonna, you know, the body went into freeze, and because of our straight legs, because we don't have the elasticity like animals do. Animals are constantly from here, they're not here, they're here, okay? So it's a very bent position, okay? And then they'll straighten almost straight if they're really leaping, okay? So they're constantly activating this area. We don't have, I mean, what do we do? I mean, yes, I can do this, and most of you might think that that's a little looser than most people, okay, that I have a better range of motion. But I mean, in my daily life, day to day, what do? Maybe I'll go, you know, at the most I sit on a chair. Okay, so the range of motion, the amount of activation of this area is minimal. Okay, so when we freeze, okay, when you have post-traumatic stress disorder, okay, and this area is frozen, it's not going to have the elasticity to release like an animal would. I mean, I don't do squirrel psychotherapy, you know, after my cat catches them or something. But, you know, but I'm watching what happens, okay? The mouse, the chipmunk, the squirrel, whatever, they freeze, and then when the cat lets go, or it hasn't, you know, whatever, they go and run around. They just keep moving, okay? So it would appear, I don't know what happens in their mind, okay, but it would appear that they recover. And so their ability to recover is much faster. People's ability to recover, because this is so closely related to the nervous system, seems to be very much hampered. Okay? So that's really why I started this whole, you know, investigation of stomach 30, is because so much of our health has to do with shutting down. We're like contracting. And this is the place, the spring, where I'm going to contract into. And my inquiry is, how much can I get by releasing the spring here? How much effect is it going to be on the rest of the health, on the rest of the organism? So that's why this whole theory about core, blah, 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 blah. This is all just basic, you know, like it's a way to justify, or it's a way to make inquiries. And the reason I'm sharing it with you is because so that you can make your own inquiries and take these ideas to wherever you want to take it. Not necessarily about stomach 30, but, you know, just so that we can each see the processes of thought. And we don't know what the processes of thought were of the people who wrote the Ling Shu or the Su Wen, you know. But that's how we might be able to, quote unquote, communicate with them. We start having ideas and we investigate and see, does this seem to correspond to what we think is written? And maybe it is, and maybe it isn't. And, you know, we just play these games of researching. What are the possibilities? No, not just of the body, but of affecting the body with needles. Okay, that's really what that whole thing is about. So for me, so that's why, you know, this whole paper is really about kind of trying to explore what is this situation in stomach 30. How did people in the classics look at it? And there's a number of things that are fairly obvious. So for example, they associate stomach 30 as part of the Zongqi. The Zongqi also drops down to stomach 30. The Zongqi is the chest qi, okay? Which means that it's related to breathing. Now, so the psoas is a breathing muscle, strangely enough. I know you think that it does this, that it has to do with the leg. But because it attaches to the lumbars, and so at L2, it's actually touching the diaphragm. Okay, so a tight psoas could mean, trust me, it does touch the diaphragm. That part I did check out. So in a sense, the capacity of the diaphragm is somewhat related. It's not only related to the psoas, but the psoas will affect the capacity of the diaphragm to breathe. Okay, and I don't have a clear anatomical explanation why the psoas will affect the autonomic nervous system, but I have an observation that it does. Okay, and there is a phrase in Nanjing 29 that says that the Cheng is related to internal worry. Okay, that's a nervous system situation. Okay. By the way, it's the page before the last that I'm looking at. That gives you kind of like the summary of what in TCM we would call indications for stomach 30. So so stomach 30 definitely relates to the lower back. Okay, and everybody, like any sort of massage therapist, this thing. Oh, you have sciatica, you have lower back pain. Let's release the psoas. Let's, ouch, kind of, situation. Okay, relates to the diaphragm, and it also relates to the whole leg. There's a bunch of phrases. Well, the psoas obviously relates to the leg, and also you see it in the Ling Shu. When they talk about the Cheng moving down the leg. So it clearly has relationship to the shin, to the knee, and to the foot. Okay? And you can look at it just as a circulatory situation. That, there's just, that's where the circulation to at least the inner leg comes from. The area of stomach 30. Then if you look at when you are sitting down and trying to activate this area, what I'm hoping you can start feeling is that it's like a big faucet down there. That it's like if there's something kind of like moving up, this is the faucet that turns it on or off. The tap. Faucet is not not an English word.
It is. It's not commonly used.
Okay, a tap. A tap is fine.
I was just making sure that's it.
No, I did mean a tap, and I would have said a tap. I just thought faucet was a nicer word. So it just shows you, don't get pretentious. No, I mean, they use kitchen, if you have, you change your faucet actually in America. You don't change your tap. Like if you're buying a new chrome something, it's a faucet. But anyway, so it's like this big churning thing that you can control. It regulates the amount of qi that comes in. Now, in Cheng, in this character, you'll see in the handout, you'll see an analysis of that character. That character also in it has the character Li in it. Li is to measure, like Zusan Li, Shousan Li, okay? And so there's something about stomach 30, about Cheng, that regulates, how much. It measures how much. There's also a very strong connection between stomach 36 and when the Ling Shu talks about stomach 36 and stomach 30 together a lot. Okay, for abdominal pain, use stomach 30, stomach 36. The C of grain, the C of the stomach is stomach 36 and stomach 36, stomach 30 and stomach 36. Okay, they seem to appear together. Okay, so they both have some sort of regulatory effect. Okay, one because the Cheng actually has the character Li in it, and the stomach 36 is actually a Li, is a measuring device. Okay, like 3 miles. Okay, it's actually not a mile. It's supposed to be 1/10 of a mile, but whatever. So, any questions? Oh, sorry, I thought. Okay.
Just an observation. I was thinking about the nervous relationship to this area.
Uh-huh.
And I thought when you go through extreme shock, like sudden shock, your knees go, you pee yourself, and you lose your balance.
Yes.
So it's almost like it seems to affect this area, or you go like this, or it get you in this area.
Yeah, and that's kind of like when we talk about adrenal shock, we talk about how it's kidney 16 area that you contract into navel, but you're right that if it's really more serious, you'll have the whole loss of the leg, which I believe has a connection with stomach 30.
And I'm not sure, but I just wonder about the...
But I don't know if anatomically how, I don't know how to, it's what we observe, but what's the explanation physiologically?
About supporting of the organs, actually how they're supported.
The mesentery.
Yeah, and whether there's a correlation between the two.
I would assume that there is, but
I'm assuming it as well, but I'll
yeah, but I don't know what the that's something to kind of that how come okay. So we're saying that we're claiming right now that stomach 30, that the psoas and stomach 30 area have something to do with freezing, shock, and he was saying that when we have a serious serious fear, the knees go and you would pee, or like that everything. And I said, I don't know what the physiological or anatomical explanation, like what they say is happening. So in other words, I don't have a good explanation for stomach 30 from an anatomical, or for the psoas, from an anatomical physiological correlation. How it's explained in Western medicine, do you know?
When you were saying about the autonomic nervous system and not sure on the source, the phrenic nerve originates at C2.
Yeah.
Comes in at C5, comes down by the heart, and it actually encases, well, not fully encases, but the diaphragm, and that's where the origin of the anterior source comes in. So that's your connection.
Okay.
So that's where the autonomic nervous system will come in.
Right.
Because C2 then affects the upper parts of the brain.
Yeah.
And senses. Sure, an ophthalmologist, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why
So you think, okay.
I can't explain the bladder thing right now.
Sorry?
I can't explain the bladder thing. They would just pee.
Yeah, I mean, no, there's definitely a sort of a non-holding that happens.
Fight-flight response, though.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Well, that's the kind of, this is the opposite of fight and flight in a sense. And so I'm wondering if it has something to do with the sacral, that there is a parasympathetic plexus in front of the sacral. The what?
Bendal nerve, the sacral plexus.
Okay.
The bladder, the bowel.
Okay, so I think that will be much more related to that because in a fight or flight, okay, everything contracts and I'm out of here. In this thing when you pee, like you're like, it's like helplessness. Okay, this is not even freezing. This is the opposite of what's supposed to happen. Evolutionarily, we were not created to see the dinosaur and go, oh. We were. It's like, would you like a little pea for breakfast? That was not what was meant to happen. What's meant to happen is you're supposed to tighten and run like hell. And when the dinosaur's teeth are like touching you, you're supposed to contract and shut down. That responsive, like it's the opposite. It's the inability to engage. But it still shows the same situation in a sense, the same connection, but it's the opposite of what was meant to happen supposedly. Like everything just went.
I was told it was emptying everything you didn't need in order to kind of.
You don't have time to empty anything. No.
So you lighter, so you can.
I think I'll take the extra half kilo with me rather than wait around. And Mr. Dinos, can you wait while I wipe? It's like it just isn't reason. I think that's like the opposite of fight. That's like.
I can't go while you're looking.
Yeah, excuse me, I'm a little pee shy. Would you turn around and let me do my thing, and then we'll chase again. So I think that's sort of, it's when fear takes over without any coil, in my terminology. I don't know what physiologically it would call it, but it's when you don't have the elasticity anymore. You don't have the ability to gather your coil and spring. Okay, everything just goes, and at that moment, you're not feeling. My experience of those moments, okay? Not too many, thankfully, but otherwise I'd be wearing a diaper the whole time. But, it's like that moment of like, when everything gives in the lower legs, that is not a moment of non-feeling, in my experience. That is a moment of very heightened feeling of very particular. It's true that it's of a very particular nature. You can't feel anything else. But you feel it's a very intense feeling moment in my experience. We're all working with our own senses of this. That's why, there may be people who actually research this, and we might be able to learn more. So.
Well, I think there's a lot coming out, isn't there, about. I think the model was just fight and flight originally, and then I think more recently this idea of freezing comes in, and that's where you can have a lot of trauma. So the idea where you go absolutely passive to something, and it's the idea of shutting down. So it's a kind of new theory that's coming alongside fight and flight at the moment. I don't know if people...
Massive shock.
Sorry?
Massive shock. Can actually, it's so big, it can actually let the body just, it's like going in. There's a name there, suspended animation. It's where the body is so shocked, everything will just go.
Yeah, which is a little more similar, yeah. And that's really not, I think that was not what evolutionary was expected of us. We're not meant to do, we're meant to like totally lock or use the spring and get the hell out. We're not really meant to just kind of like, helplessness is not a, helplessness does not help evolution. A helpless organism is not an organism that's going to produce itself genetically. Because I'm helpless. It's like, it needs, but it does happen. And I think it's the lack of ability to engage that creates the helplessness. That's, but I could be wrong. That's why I could be totally wrong on all of this. I'm just expressing what I see and what I think it is, and then other people can, we can have dialogues and expand on it and come to totally different conclusions. And that's really what the purpose is. It's not for me to dictate ideas for other people, for the world. Yeah.
I think the idea is if the freeze sticks, then it's a problem. But freeze apparently is a useful thing in evolution.
Oh no, freeze is totally. No, wait. I'm saying, okay, I'm not saying there's fight or flight or freeze. I'm saying there's fight or flight. Freeze is part of fight or flight, is still the same category. And then what you described is not freeze. What you described is total nothingness.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like, so think about it as three different things. Fight or flight, freeze because I can no longer run, or up front I went, oh, dinosaur. Okay, that response of, oh, dinosaur, is not an that's not meant to happen. That was not the nature's. It happens because nature is unable to engage. It's a total non-engagement. Freeze is an engagement. Now, the freeze response is a good response. The problem is that we are unable to release the freeze response often, and I'm saying it's because our use of the leg is not strong, is not large enough. This is how we use this area instead of this. So we don't have the mechanism to, the spring went like this, and now I keep walking like this. The spring's never going to release until I stretch it out. An animal doesn't have a choice but to release that spring. If an animal wants to walk, an animal can't walk like, it has to, just the way they're built. This area has to keep going in and out. Okay? So it has to keep coiling and uncoiling. Humans, we can pretty much walk anywhere we want by doing the most minimal movement in the psoas. Does that make sense? And that's why one of the theories, that's why we're unable to unfreeze. Freeze is good. The inability to unfreeze is the problem. You look like you had a question now. Okay.
The sacrum link, like if you've got lateral sprinters or lordotic posture where the sacrum is kind of a little bit tucked like that, that automatically must mean stomach 30 area
is going to be
is gonna
shifted.
be compressed, right?
Yes.
So one of the and the sacrum is the parasympathetic plexus. So that's there's a lot.
The sacrum has a parasympathetic plexus, as far as I know. Yes.
Parasympathetic nerves that.
And you're congesting that, which means that you're not getting.
So if you can open stomach 30, the sacrum can drop.
Ideally, well, that's what, you know, with manual, well, yeah, so a lot of people who do manual manipulations will try and release the psoas in order to correct the sacrum. Yeah, and that is part of its connection to the nervous system. You know, so the way that, say, the Chinese expressed it is saying that the Chang, stomach 30, relates to internal anxiety, internal hurriedness, internal worry. Okay, and that same character, G, means also is the name of liver 12, which is, you know, to some extent it's close enough to the insertion of the psoas. Okay, liver 12 is called the hurried pulse or the anxious pulse, G May. Okay, so there's a strong connection for me in my eyes. Okay.
Would you use could you use stomach 30 for somebody who is just taking tiny steps? They actually don't have that elongation.
I might use. Okay, so the thing is, what I'm trying to suggest is this whole lecture is really about looking at stomach 30. It doesn't mean we need needle stomach 30. In other words, what I'm saying is it's important to check, and here are the things it could be related to, and then let's go through the last bit. Let's do that. That's probably the easiest solution. It's like it's always good to look at conclusions rather than process. I'm on the absolute last page of this handout. Okay, so check stomach 30 for pelvic shifts, Mr. Nick. Back pain. Also, there's a bunch of places it's not just low back; it's the whole back shoes. It could be related to the whole back. And Lawrence, I know you had a question. I'm sorry. Also, you know, what we talk about visceroptosis, when people, they have big abdomens or big breasts and everything falls onto the inguinal ligaments, that can create back pain or whatever, or shoulder pain. Okay, that one is stomach 13 indication. Okay. Then any leg structural or circulatory problems. Okay. It will relate to the throat and the neck. Now, there's two ways to look at it, at the why of that. Well, there's actually a bunch of ways to look at the why. I mean, one of the famous ones, you know, if you remember, you know, Kiiko's stuff from like, say, 3 or 4 years ago when she was interested in stomach 9, kidney 11 connection. One way to look at it. Another way to look at it, Chung, okay, which is to rush. And hold on, just make sure I give you the right one. And 2, like Ren 22, Fu 2. Okay, and there's 2 more. I think it's large intestine 18 has a 2 in it, and below 10 would be 11, I assume. Stomach 11 has the character 2. 2 is well, they translate it as not to rush, but to dash. Okay, but forget the English translations. What 2 means is you have a dog that's running out of its cave. Okay, so that's why they kind of say like a chimney. When a dog runs out of the cave, the image is like something like the smoke in the chimney from a small situation. That's why they translated Tian Tu, Ren 22, they translate celestial chimney. Okay, that's not quite correct. Okay, it's really celestial dashing, and the character is really a dog that's pow. You know, get the hell out of my cave, kind of thing, or his cave, or whatever, you know, but he's running out. So there's a certain association that there's something narrow there. But you can see that dashing and rushing, like Chung and Tu, you can see that they're related. They're kind of the same action. Okay? So Qi Chung, stomach 30, is going to relate to the one, you know, on the other side, there's that other place of rushing. Okay? Now, you can also look at it in terms of the nervous system, that this is the rush. You know, if you're rushing, you might be here. But you better be here also if you want to really dash out. okay? But the other thing is, if you can't engage the core, just like the tooth fairy situation, you're going to hold yourself somewhere up here because you can't engage. If you can't engage your legs, you're going to engage your throat or something at the top, something at the extremities. Something's got to hold you up because your legs are not doing that, and you're just basically falling on bones. Okay, so if there's no activity in the inside of the leg and the inside, the perineal floor, something else is going to want to hold you. Okay, so that's how I see the connection between this area and the neck. Okay, so in neck problems or throat tension, it's worth checking stomach 30. It doesn't mean that every neck, or every back problem, stomach 30 is going to do a good job. Okay, but it just means it's worth checking. Okay, and then anxiety, depression, yeah.
So when you check stomach 30, what would you find?
Tension, pressure pain.
So tension up here will result in tension.
Or the other way around. Yeah, the tension or lack of ability to engage that will result in pressure pain will also result in neck tension. Does that make sense? Okay. So any sort of anxiety, depression, panic attacks, because they relate to zong qi, the chest qi. Panic attacks do, because you can't breathe. Okay, so, and any sort of autonomic nervous system disorders, it's worth checking stomach 30 also. In other words, all I'm saying is that this is a whole point that we basically have, we tend to ignore because it's a little bit uncomfortable to check. Okay, and what I'm suggesting is that it might be worth checking. If you find stomach 30, what you look at, if it's a person that's basically huge person, obese person, and everything falls onto the inguinal ligament, you need to lift it, pull it up first. And that's your stomach 13 type first. Then you can do more. But first and foremost, look at, for that kind of person that they're so big and they're falling downwards. Okay? But if it's not that, then look at liver 4. We saw the connection between liver 4 and stomach 30, both in the body and in terms of character. Okay? Then look at kidney 9, okay, especially if they have structural shifts. Kidney 9 possibly will do a better job than liver 4. Look at stomach chi as options, okay. Again, because stomach chi is really the Sea of Chang, okay. I mean, you can call, we're calling it stomach chi, but that includes the large intestine, small intestine, lower hair points, okay, which are the Sea of Chang, okay. Do look at stomach 42 because of the name, Chongyang, and it's a way of getting the foot involved in sending the action up. And also, stomach 41 is basically part of stomach chi, but it's different because it's the hinge of the foot, okay, of the ankle. So that's another one to look at. And then also look at musho. So this whole discussion is still related to this whole idea of lift.
Sorry, I don't know what stomach chi means.
Oh, stomach chi are the bumps. Originally we defined stomach chi as between stomach 40 and 41, there'll be bumps. But stomach chi is really anything along the stomach channel. But we're talking about just lateral, touching the bone, not, many people take the stomach channel as if it's the second channel. There's one channel by the bone and another channel, one finger breadth away. Many people treat it, prefer to needle away from the bone. We're talking about literally the bumps on the bone. It's on the bone. We needle towards the bone and down this direction.
And stomach 42, I've always found that a difficult point to...
It is a difficult point. Yeah, it is.
Do you have any tips?
No. Wiggle the foot a little bit. Don't worry about locating so much. Look at the area. I mean, it's supposed to be between bones. It's supposed to be where there's a pulse. Yeah, right. That's kind of where you don't want a needle, right? So basically, look for the thing that will get you the effect that you want, which is to release stomach 30 and the rest of the abdomen. Now, just to repeat, just before we should take a break, I'm not giving you like stomach 30 releases. Now, then you can release stomach 30. So your strategy, which is basically a summary for the way I look at these strategies, is I am not giving you do this for this, do this for this, do this for this. Those things are fine and they exist. My way of working is I check the whole abdomen. It's just one way of diagnosing. It is not God. Okay? This is not there's no absolutism about the abdomen. It's just a way of choosing points and making sure if the abdomen clears, then there's the assumption that we're affecting the rest of the body. That's all. Okay? So the problem with do this for this, do this for this, in other words, some people will, you know, take the style and think, okay, I have below 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock, below kidney 16. That's adrenal. I should do kidney 6 and kidney 27. But, oh, they have kidney 2 pain. I'll do kidney 7, 10, and 27, right? These are the dogmas. What I'm saying is that's a consideration. That is not a given. Okay? What you want to do is you want to check the whole abdomen and you want to see, if I apply adrenal treatment, the fact that it clears 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock is not a big deal. The big deal that tells me this is the right treatment is if it starts clearing, oh, and REN 17, and lung 2, and blah, blah, and blah, blah, and blah, blah, then you know it's primary. So the same thing. So sometimes, often you will see me use points, and I'm not even checking them against the reflex that they're supposed to be meant for. I'm checking them against all sorts of weird things in the abdomen. I'm looking at the whole abdomen. I'm looking one by one. I'm keeping in mind all the one by ones and the protocols. Okay? So I don't have, like if I were to teach this much more methodologically, which I can't yet because I'm still researching this, I should be able to tell you stomach 30 relates to pressure pain here and pressure pain here and pressure, you know, I should be able to at one point give you a better presentation on this. What I'm saying is whatever you check in the abdomen, if then stomach 30 resolves the abdomen, then look if one of the remote points, like liver 4, that resolves stomach 30, okay, resolves stomach 30 and the rest of the abdomen. That's your ideal indication for liver 4. If it just resolves stomach 30 but doesn't affect the rest of the abdomen, probably not your best choice. Same thing will work with kidney 9. Might be a great point for releasing stomach 30, may not. But does it percolate further? Okay, and then that tells you, yeah, that freeze response at stomach 30 was possibly a key issue. Okay, fair?
Sorry, didn't understand the order of liver 4 and stomach 30.
Okay, you release liver 4 in order to release stomach 30.
All right,
okay, so the idea, okay, so you checked abdomen and you press stomach 30. And stomach 30 releases the whole, let's say, the whole abdomen. You go, oh, freeze response type person. That's the core issue. I need to release, to uncoil the core. Okay, whatever language you want to use for it. Now, let's say stomach 30 but it's painful. So yes, it released the abdomen, and by the way, the shoulder is much better, whatever they came for. You can't really you could needle stomach 30, but I prefer not to. So I look at liver 4. Does liver 4 release stomach 30? Let's say the answer is yes. Then I go and check everything else in the abdomen. Does liver 4 also release the rest of the abdomen? Because if it doesn't, okay, so it released stomach 30. What's the big trick here? I want to make sure that liver 4 releases stomach 30 and percolates for everything else, including hopefully the symptom. Okay. Now, it's possible that liver 4 will do 30% and 40%, 50, 60%. It doesn't have to do the full job. But I want to see that it actually has an effect. And it doesn't have to change every single reflex. But I don't like the attitude of, you have oketsu, you do liver 4, lung 5. You have adrenal, you do kidney 6, 27. Because you'll end up with 20 zillion protocols on a single patient. It's just not terribly economical. You will get results that way. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying it's, if possible, and for those of us who have more time, if you're not seeing, if you don't have 6 people in a clinic at the same time and you have to run around between them, you have more time to look at what more can I extract here and how can I be more efficient. You'll be better off doing that way, because one day when you have the 7, 10, 20, 30 people, 100 people a day, that you have to deal with. No, there are people who treat 100 people a day. It's a little hard to believe. I've never done it, but there are people who do it. Your ability to move fast and just do will be very effective. But whereas if you just do the protocols as if you have 100 people a day up front, you locked yourself into the protocols and you never developed a resonance.